You're in Braves country.
Good afternoon, Braves country. As these Braves country todays, we know that they really difficult to maneuver because we're going throughout the season. We all have jobs trying to get things done, and we also got the game tonight. But today's 1 o'clock Eastern. If you didn't see it live, it changes. I'm not sure when we're going to do the next one. It will probably be Monday afternoon, I believe. I think Monday afternoon, if everything is right. I think we're going to do Monday afternoon. Look, we do these right after one series and right before another. There's no point of worrying about the Cincinnati game. There's just one game on Monday, so we'll probably do it before the Cincinnati game, probably usually around 3:30, 4 o'clock. We'll have it up, and we're on YouTube, and we're also over on Facebook Live. We're doing the Facebook Live. Try to get some people to come over to our YouTube account. I think a lot of people on the Facebook don't know that even though they see the 19,000 or whatever it is followers we have, they don't realize when we're doing these games, when they pop up on your Facebook screen, that we actually have a ton of people in the YouTube link, which is where we want everybody to go to keep everyone all under one roof. But we'll see people pop in and out of the Facebook chat, but I think a lot of them don't realize that that's going on over in YouTube. And we don't have time to really cross-promote whatnot during the game because we're bringing you the game. But we see Dion in the chat. We've got Garrett. Garrett's headed to the golf course. You got to love that. Got to love that. Go to the golf course on a Friday. And, of course, this show, what we do is we take a look at the series we just completed and we look at the next one. So, once again, on Monday, I think we'll probably get somewhere around 3:30, 4 o'clock, somewhere in that neighborhood. We'll probably shoot for 3:30, and sometimes we run a little late. It all depends on when I can get to the studio. But we will be recapping the Toronto series at that point and looking ahead to the Washington series. We'll also take a little quick look at the Cincinnati game when we have that information in on that. So real quick, let's go ahead and start off with the Colorado series. And look, it started off great, right? We loved it. It started off great. And we go out and we get the first two wins. But let's be honest, even with those two wins, we didn't look outstanding offensively. Offensively, we were kind of a disaster. And we have been for quite some time. And this is a team that honestly, we're going to have to go out there and gut out these wins. I think there's going to be nights where the offense does come into play and the offense will carry us, but they're going to be few and far between. Right now, the Atlanta Braves are 76 and 64. So big picture, what that means is that we are 48 games into the season, which means we have 24 games left. That ain't a lot. By the way, also, we only have 2 days off left of those 24 games. So you got to realize how you're going to be trying to manipulate your bullpen more than anything else because you don't have the extra days off to get ready. Now, that's the worst part of the news. The best part of the news is the team that is right behind us, the New York Mets. They have a much more difficult road to hoe than what we do. But you still got to win the games in front of you. And look, I'm trying to spit it whatever you want to say and try to put up the cherry on top. We needed to sweep Colorado. These are these games that we needed. The Mets went out and swept the Red Sox, who are a much better baseball team at home this week. And we played with our food on Thursday night and dropped the third game of the series. And I'm going to say this, but this was not the reason why we lost by any stretch of the imagination. But I'm sick and tired of seeing Luke Jackson being put into that bullpen. Coming out of that bullpen, put into a game. I don't care what you have to do. If it means you have to DFA him, if it means you have to come up with the ghost IL, whatever the hell you have to do, he can't be involved in these close games anymore because he always spits the bit. He always spits the bit, and we cannot afford it any longer. Now, with that being said, was that Luke's fault that we lost? Of course not. We scored one damn run against Austin Gomber, who came in with a pretty high ERA, and a Colorado bullpen that was terrible. Once again, this is maddening to me. And they want to put it all on the batters. But at some point, you've got to point to the personnel or the folks that are running the organization. Why in the world is Luke Jackson in those games at that time? That's number one. But then the other thing, why is it our offense never seems to realize that they can control how deep that pitcher gets? If they go out there, they give good at bats, they fight off the at bats, but you have guys, and we're talking about from the top of the order to the bottom of the order. Michael Harris the second, 3 games in a row swung at the first pitch. You think these pitchers in the coaching staffs that are definitely out coaching us at this point, you think they don't know this? That he's trying to ambush a fastball? Well, they put a fastball on him, and they put it just a little high, a little wide, and he's popping them up. You usually see a much better at bat his second, his third at bat, okay. But what is going on? What's the disconnect from the coaching staff to the batters where they're not relaying the message, which should be, you're a leadoff hitter, whoever it is, whether it's Whit Merrifield, although I won't get on to him because he's done a much better job at the leadoff spot, but whether it's Whit Merrifield, whether it's Michael Harris, whoever's up there, that you set the tone, especially at the beginning of the game. And if you can get – one of the biggest reasons why a leadoff hitter looks at pitches is so that all the other guys coming up get an idea of what the guy looks like to set the tone of the game. But also, if you go out there and you're a one-pitch out, immediately the next guy coming up, usually Jorge Soler, now he feels like he should probably take a pitch or two. So now he's starting down low, down in the count, 0-1, 0-2, whatever. And if Jorge Soler ends up getting an 0-1 pitch and he goes, well, I can't sit here and do this all night long for good enough reasons, he swings and pops one out. Then you got 3 pitches in, and now Ozuna feels like he's got to eat some pitches because we don't want to. We had a 4-pitch inning in the 3rd inning, I believe it was last night. We had 3 consecutive innings where their starting pitcher, Austin Gomber, who is not Sandy Koufax, but you would have thought he was last night. We had 3 consecutive innings where we didn't get double-digit pitches from the opposing pitcher. And we're talking about 3 consecutive innings. Not just that one weird inning where there's a 5 or 6 pitch inning, 7, 8, whatever, what have you. It happens. 3 consecutive. I think the total in those 3 innings, I don't even think it was 20. I'm trying to go off of memory right here, but I think it was right at 20. If it was 20, it was barely 20. It's 20, 21. But I want to say it was 19 pitches in those 3 innings. Like I said, I might be off by a pitch or two. Not the point. The point is, you do that, you're setting the guy up for a complete game. So last night, and obviously we're always going to react to the night before because it's the one that's most on our mind. So it always feels better when you win the last game of the series and you won the series as opposed to winning the first 2 and you drop one. I get that. It's human natures. But the pitching staff, there are fans out there that think that it's the pitcher's fault that these Braves aren't winning these games. Man, when you give up only 3 earned runs at home, you win those games. Now, once again, I'm not a fan of Luke Jackson being in the games anymore when the game's on the line. If you're going to have him on the roster, and I say that you don't even have that luxury because the offense has been so anemic that every game's counting, every inning's counting. You can't afford to have a guy go out there and just eat innings like we did last night with Luke Jackson. But even the games that we've won in this series, 3-0, 5-2, and then lose 3-1. So we scored 9 runs in 3 games at home against one of the worst pitching staffs in baseball. And, Gomber goes out there, and you would have thought that Gomber was the guy sitting there with the ERA right at 2 going into the game. Not Raylo. It's really pathetic when you see Austin Gomber. And I don't want to beat that kid up because, look, tough circumstances. He calls Rockies Coors Field his home. But the guy's got an ERA of 4.50 even with the 8 innings. He goes on 8 innings, 92 pitches, 6 strikeouts, 5 hits. That may be the worst offensive performance of the entire season, and I'm even counting the shutouts. And we've had way too many of those. But I'm even counting the shutouts because the shutouts, most of the time, are going up against pretty darn good pitchers. And then when you top off the fact that you're needing the win, you need to get the W, you need to have a full game lead on the Mets. Instead, we go into today 76 and 64 in a flat-footed tie with the Mets. We're 2.5 back of the Diamondbacks, 3 back of the Padres. But I can't even get concerned with catching the Padres or the Diamondbacks because it's going to be very hard to get scalding hot down the stretch and outplay them, even though they are coming down to earth, because the offense has got to click a hell of a lot more. We're hoping that Whit Merrifield is ready to roll today. We were told that he probably would be. If you're listening this on the replay after they've given the lineups, obviously we know more now than we did when we did the show live here on Facebook Live and on the Braves Country Radio YouTube. But the biggest concern with this team right now, it's not the pitching. It is absolutely 100% the offense. It's the lackluster. There are these at-bats that they're giving away. I'll tell you something else that I'm getting annoyed with. The Orlando Arcia junk, where every time he gets out, he's slamming the bat down. That is not going to help you one bit in getting on base. He's doing it strictly for dramatics. And he just recently started doing that. He's doing it with almost every out. Like he's trying to convince you. It used to drive me nuts what Paul O'Neill would do. Like he's trying to convince you that he should have gotten on, but gosh darn it, things just didn't go right. I'm unlucky. I don't buy into any of those expected stats ever. People love to lean on those. Expected stats are fables. They try to tell you, well, if his exit velocity this, exit velocity that the ball was hit really hard. It should have fell. Not if you hit it in the teeth of the defense. You know what the defense is when you first come up there. So if they're playing you to pull and you hammer one down to the third base line, but it's right into the glove of the third baseman who's standing there, doesn't have to move. That's not, oh, man, that's bad. Like, no, it's not. It's terrible approach at the plate. So I don't even get into – Garrett says the offense is so trash. Yeah, it is. It's mind-boggling because it was so good last year. And, yes, we had the injury to Acuna. I get it. And, yes, we've had injuries to Riley and Ozzie. But let's not make like that before any of those injuries occurred that this offense was rolling. This offense has been terrible. Since at the end of April, this offense is one of the worst in baseball. And, yeah, we'll have a nighter here where we go out and explode for 7 runs, 6 runs. And you're like, all right, this is what I'm talking about. I'll give you an example. We played Philadelphia. Won't go back into that series. But after the game that Snicker choked away, on the Thursday night game. We come out and we scored 7. So we scored 4 and then 7 in Philadelphia back-to-back nights against good pitching, and you're like, all right, maybe they're starting to come alive. And this is after they'd gone into Minnesota and scored 10, 8, and 5 respectively. So you're really starting to feel like, all right, here we go. We're getting it going. And then what do they follow it up with? Being shut out, scoring 2 runs in 11 innings, couldn't get an extra run anywhere in extra innings. We score 3 against Colorado and Kyle Freeland, who is a disaster. Score 5 against Colorado in Blaylock. Okay, that looked pretty good, but then again, this is a young kid he's literally, I don't even know if the kid's shaving. And you're going, all right, well, wasn't pretty, but we've gotten these wins, and then they go out and they get the 1 run. The 1 run. And the 1 run came in the first inning. 8 innings of nothing. And it's, at some point, they've got to point to Seitzer. And for that matter, the leadership of the clubhouse, which falls on Snicker, because if you're not happy with what your hitting coach is doing, you go and you say something to work on the adjustments. Evidently, they're just letting it go by. They're letting game after game after game, week after week, month after month of doesn't appear to be any real approach at the plate. It is, which is maddening because every team in Major League Baseball nowadays has meetings right before a series, and this is what we're going to do, and this is what we're looking for, and this is what we're trying to get accomplished. And yet they'll go in, and by the second or third game, like you might see it in the first game, but by the second or third game, they've gone right back to their ways. They're losing ways of, and though they might be getting a win, it's a loser mentality from the offense of, I'm just going to look for a fastball and try to ambush at the beginning of the. That's Little League. That is Little League mentality. So once again, hopefully we start getting some of these guys back and we start getting better approaches. But I'm not sold that Seitzer is this great offensive coach. I'm sold that he caught lightning in a bottle last year and the offense broke all kinds of records, and they thought they could do the same thing that they did last year and have it equate this year. All those guys had career years last year. And they kind of fed off each other, right? But we talked about it last year when they were blowing it up. It used to drive me nuts because we weren't doing anything to eat pitches. Get into that bullpen early, going deep on the pitch count on the starting pitcher. You go all the way back to the 1990s. The New York Yankees, for all the things you think that they did to win, spend money, outspend their competition, what the New York Yankees did in the late 90s, better than anybody else in baseball, is they worked the count and they got into your bullpen early. And they knew that their bullpen could outdo your bullpen, so let's go. Anyways, I did think about this. The only positive of this entire thing is you get in the playoffs, they're usually low-scoring games, fights, grinds. Well, the Braves are used to doing that all year long, so maybe advantage Atlanta, but we've got to get to the playoffs. We've got to get to the playoffs. So, putting that aside, all in all, I'm going to give the previous series on the Braves Rockies a C. Normally, if you win the series, I'm going to give you a B, but you're at home against the Colorado Rockies. Let's call a spade a spade. Rockies are terrible. And to not only get 2 of the 3 wins, but also for the offense just being just awful, I got to go with that. The next thing I would say with this is we go into the Toronto series, and the Mets, by the way, at the same time, the New York Mets are going to be playing the Cincinnati Reds, and they are at home in New York. So we're at home, they're at home. And we'll talk about the Mets here in a second, more on their upcoming schedule. But the Mets are at home against Cincinnati, and they've got Manaea, Quintana, and Severino going up against Cruz. They have not listed a starter for tomorrow, and Aguilar. It's kind of a bad deal for the Braves who want the Reds to do as well as possible. They're not going to see the better pitchers. The Reds do have a couple of good starting pitchers. The New York Mets are going to dodge them. But we're just hoping. I'm hoping Cincinnati can win at least one of those series. That's the hope. The Mets have swept Boston. They swept the White Sox. And before that, they won 2 of 3 versus Arizona in Arizona. By the way, they swept the White Sox in Chicago. And they split in San Diego. So the New York Mets, not only have they won 7 in a row, in 8 of their last 9, they've won 9 of their last 11, and 8 of those games were on the road. Braves have got to show up in a big way and take care of the Blue Jays. And the Blue Jays, they're a much more difficult foe than Cincinnati is these days. Cincinnati's kind of packed it in. And the Blue Jays, we're going to get Gausman, which you don't love that. He's coming with a 4 ERA, but he's got nasty stuff. Most Braves fans will remember Kevin Gausman. He was with Atlanta just before this run really took off. He was with the Braves before he signed the free agent deal. Was actually traded out to San Francisco and to sign the free agent deal with Toronto. But in the 3-game series that we've got coming up, it's Max Fried tonight versus Gausman. And though Gausman's a good starting pitcher, I don't give a damn. We're at home. We should have the advantage. Same thing tomorrow night. Barrios, pretty good starting pitcher. I don't give a damn. We've got Schwellenbach and we're at home. We should have the advantage. The offense needs to go out there and put some crooked numbers up. This 1 run here and then 4 or 5 innings and no runs is just getting ridiculous. It's past ridiculous. And then we got Chris Sale on Sunday, and we definitely have the advantage there with Rodriguez on the mound for Toronto. But this isn't really a series that I'm going to be okay. Look, I'll take a 2 out of 3, but I'm getting greedy at this point, and I want to sweep. Mainly because the Mets continue to win. And look, they're a team that feels like they're playing with house money. The pressure's really more on the Braves, and the Braves are starting to crack. You can see it at the plate with some of these batters. They're grinding the bat handle into sawdust. They got to go out there with a relaxed approach, but more than anything else, sitting dead red, if you get one right in your wheelhouse, I get it. Swing early. That's fine. But we're getting guys swinging at fastballs high and barely touching the zone. Don't swing at a pitcher's pitch before you have 2 strikes. That should be the message to this offense. Get your pitch. And until you get your pitch, make that pitcher work. Once you get the 2 strikes, defend the plate and quit getting these. We've had way too many backward Ks. Way too many backward Ks. And it's up and down the lineup. Yeah, I'm not going to kill one person over this because it's up and down the lineup. But we've got that. And then real quick, I'm going to go over the Cincinnati game because you might as well. It's just 1 game. Although we'll probably Monday's show will be around 3:30, so we'll have a chance to react. But it's Charlie Morton versus Martinez. So what you're looking at in the next week, what the Braves have, and this is the area of the schedule where you should be making some room for yourself. Instead, we've fallen back down to the Mets because the Mets have been playing unbelievable. And look, you got to tip your cap to them. There are other years where the New York Mets have been absolutely floundering, and you run away with the division, or you run away with it's been the division the last 6 years, but the Mets are out there winning 4 out of 10. We're winning 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10, and the gap is getting wider and wider. This year, it's not the case. I won't say they've run us down, but they've outplayed us over the last month. And they've outplayed us over the last 2 or 3 months. But you have the opportunity for the next 4 games are against teams, 2 different teams. Neither one of them are sniffing the playoffs. You got to get the wins. Then we go a 2-game series in Washington, and they have really played us hard, played us well. And then we turn around, we come back home after a day off on Thursday. It's one of our few days off. We only have one other day off the rest of the way. We come home for a 4-game series against the Dodgers, and you know that's going to take a lot out of us. And then we go on the road for 6, Reds and Marlins. And it's always difficult to win on the road. And then we'll finish the whole damn thing off after our last day off. Tuesday, September 24th, we're at home against the New York Metropolitans. And then we finish it off against the Kansas City Royals. Hopefully the Kansas City Royals, because, by the way, if you look at the American League, it's one of the reasons why I keep looking at the American League wild card. Not that we have a dog in that hunt. The Kansas City Royals are 5 games in front of their closest team for the wild card. We want the Royals to cruise. So when they come in to Atlanta for that final 3-game game of the season, they're getting ready for the playoffs. They don't give a damn about the outcome of those games. That's what we want. Because they'll be getting ready to play on that Tuesday night, and we may need to win 1 or 2, or hell, maybe we might need to win all 3 of those games if we don't play well. The other thing is with that with the Mets series, and then we're going to get out of your hair. Looking at the big picture on this, the Mets and the Braves, if it comes down to a tie, there will be no other tiebreaker other than head-to-head because we're playing each other 13 times this year. Now, they no longer do the thing in baseball for people who are older fans and remember the one-game play-in, all that is gone. They don't do it anymore. Ever since they expanded the playoffs, it's going to come down to the tiebreaker. The first tiebreaker is head-to-head. And if it's just the Braves and the Mets, head-to-head, that 3-game series in Atlanta to finish the season, that's going to decide it because right now we have beaten New York 5 times. They have beaten the Braves 5 times. So we're sitting at 5-5. And we go into that 3-game series, the final week of the season, it could have a playoff-type atmosphere because you're winning, you're in. You're winning, you're in. Because let's say you go into that – let's just say we go into that series and we're tied. We're flat-footed tie, right? And we take 2 of 3 from the Mets, you're really 2 games up with 3 games to go. Because they're going to go to the tiebreaker. Now, that's a long way from now. We got to win the games in front of us. But while that's going on, while all the games I just told you, realize this is where it's going to get a little difficult for the Mets. After this 3-game homestand against Cincinnati, they're going to go to Toronto. And they're going to go up against 3 of their better starters. They're going up against Bassett on Monday. Bowden Francis, if you haven't paid attention to him, he has been lights out like the last month out of nowhere. Bowden Francis came back up from the minors for Toronto recently. And he had really been struggling to find his role, whether he's a starter or reliever or whatever. Anyways, he has been lights out since he's come back. So they got to face Bassett, who's been really good. And you know he's going to want to beat New York just because he was an ex-Met. They didn't offer him a contract, all that stuff. Bassett, Francis, and then they will face Gausman. So that is their early part next week. And then they go to Philly for 3. They come home against Washington for 3, and then they get 4 more at home against Philadelphia. Philadelphia's had their numbers. They've had their number. The Phillies, strangely enough, mid to September to, there's a 10-day stretch there where they play them 7 times, 3 in New York, 3 in Philly, 4 in New York. We become big Philly fans. Because we're not winning the division. Put that away. Put it away. The division is gone. You can't play with your food like we have all year long. Think you're going to win the division. But we become huge Philly fans Friday, September 13th, so a week from today, until Sunday, September 22nd, 2 days before that Atlanta series. 2 days before that Atlanta series. So for 10 games, 10 days, the Mets will play the Phillies 7 times, and that is probably going to decide whether they, because if they go through that and they beat the tar out of Philadelphia and come into Atlanta, they're going to be strutting. But if they do what I think they'll probably do against Philadelphia, which is, and by the way, they could be looking ahead in that Toronto series during Philadelphia. But you're talking about a tough stretch with the Mets where, let me double check this. I don't believe they, no, they don't have a day off at all until the game before Atlanta. But once again, if you're just joining us, the Atlanta Braves and the New York Mets are tied at 5 games apiece. They have a 3-game series in Atlanta to finish off the week. They'll still each have to play one more 3-game series. By the way, the Mets go to Milwaukee. And the Braves host a Kansas City team that has probably got everything sewn away by that time. Now, Milwaukee will have won the division as well, but Milwaukee's been through this. They're not going to want to get – they might put their Bobos out on the Sunday game, the final game of the season, but I expect the Friday and Saturday game for them to put their best foot forward. So there you have it. We're playing – our pitching has been elite all year long, no matter what people try to tell you or what fans try to tell you. The fans that don't realize how good the pitching has been aren't really following the game day in and day out. They're just looking at box scores. They're seeing one pitch here, one pitch there, or they tune in for one game. But I will not try to defend Luke Jackson. Luke Jackson has been terrible, and he doesn't give you any. I would like to see them give anyone else a chance, whether it's bringing A.J. Smith-Shawver in from the bullpen. A number of other guys that you can go. We won't do a deep dive on that. But anybody. Luke Jackson is going up there, and he's getting behind in counts, and that's what led to the run last night. It's not why we lost the game. But once again, he has been awful. And he'll always be a made man because of the 2021 championship. But sometimes you can't come home again, and you're starting to wonder about Soler because he's been pitiful as well. I still believe that Soler can get into his groove. Soler still has the swing. Seemed like Soler was starting to get it together when he had the injury. But Luke Jackson, I don't want to see him again. Not in 2024. You want to bring him back next year and he prove himself, whatever. But 2024 ought to be a no Luke zone. And speaking of no Luke, hopefully Merrifield is back tonight. If he's not, the offense, I think he's a big reason why that offense moves when it does move, and I'd like to see him higher up in the order. Batting him down at the bottom is just ridiculous at this point. All what we just talked about a second ago about giving professional at-bats and eating, Whit Merrifield does that. That's why he should be at the top of the order. Have a great one, Braves country. We'll see you tonight. If you missed the show, you can always come back and watch it, as we'll put it on to public on the YouTube channel. And, of course, we'll play the audio right before the game tonight. 7:20 first pitch. We always come on the air live on the YouTube channel, Braves Country Radio, 1 hour before first pitch, basically for folks to shoot the bull and talk about whatever they want to talk about, whether it's a game or whatever. So 6:20 will come on the air, 7:20 first pitch, and we will replay this. Y'all have a good one.
You're in Braves country.